Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to make gâteau Napolitaine, which is a classic Mauritian biscuit. They are essentially a really lovely and rich shortbread, which are then sandwiched together with some strawberry jam and some pink icing traditionally. So to make this recipe, I've got 500 grams of plain flour in here, and I've got 360 grams of unsalted butter, and I'm going to add some salt to this as well. You actually want the salt in the biscuits because everything else is so sweet, so it helps to offset the balance. So there's no other way of doing this except for using your fingers. So I'm going to put the butter straight in. And the butter needs to be room temperature. And just use the tip of your fingers just to kind of spread the butter and the flour together so that you get a really, really short, crumbly pastry, la pâte. So to make sure the dough is really, really lovely and crumbly, you don't want to overwork it. So if you saw, I took it from it being crumbly to bringing it together into a dough, and I've just divided it into two. If your dough is a bit crumbly and dry, the best thing to do is add more butter. Don't add any more water or anything like that, because that will actually make it very crunchy, and you want it to be crumbly. So the dough is rested and ready. Right, so that's our dough, that's ready to go. I'm just going to roll them out and I'm going to show you what we do. Okay, so we've got both of our doughs that have been rested now. I've only rested them for around 10 minutes. It's a really warm day here today, so the butter is beginning to melt in the pastry. So just make sure you add flour. And all we're going to do now is just roll this out. So I'm just going to use a glass, and I'm just going to make my cookies out of the glass. Okay, and so now I've got my baking tray, and I'm just going to lift these up. I just want to show you how thick I've gone. You can see they're about that thick. So about 1 centimetre. And we're just going to keep rolling this out until we've used up all the dough. These are now out of the oven, and if you can see, they are cooked, but they're still very pale, and light in colour is important. And if you can see, they've got a little bit of colour, but not much, and that's perfect. So I'm just going to let them cool down. Whilst that's cooling down, I'm going to make the icing sugar. So to make the icing, I've got around 800 grams of white icing sugar in here. I've got some whole milk, and in here I've got some pink food colouring. I like to use the Wilton brand, and I normally get a big packet like this. And all I'm going to do is just use a chopstick or something like that, and just place that colour straight into the milk. And basically you want to get the right colour. It's going to end up being a little bit brighter in the milk than what you need it to be. So I actually want more colour than that, so I'm just going to add in a bit more. Oh. So that looks pretty good to me. And I'm just going to pour what I need in here and mix. Just a little bit at a time, because if you add all the milk, it'll end up being far too thin. So that's now ready, just leave it to one side. If you can see, as I'm dropping it off the spoon, it's sort of ribboning over the rest of the icing sugar. That's the perfect consistency. And I just used that much in the end. So that was around 150 mils in there. So my biscuits are now cool. I'm just going to place them on my rack. And in here I've got some strawberry jam. I'm just going to put a little bit on each one. You don't want to flood them or else it will spill out when you're putting the icing sugar on there. And then you're just going to sandwich it with the top layer. And just wipe off any excess if you see any. And now we've got our icing sugar, and all we're going to do is just place it straight over. Just make sure you do all the edges. And I've got a container underneath to trap all the excess icing, because we're going to need to use that when we So if you can see, I've got a container underneath, which is going to let me trap all the rest of that icing sugar, so I can reuse that. Whilst the icing's still wet, I like to decorate with some sprinkles. So just put them straight in the middle. And the next batch I'll top with rose petals. And we just keep going until we've made all of the Napolitaine. Right, so now all the decoration is done. All we're going to do is just let these dry completely. It will take a few hours for them to be solid dry. So just leave them on a nice big tray with some parchment paper on the base. A few hours and we can try them. So these are now all dry, lovely and glossy, and the sprinkles have set really nicely on them. If you can see, they're dry to the touch as well. And there you go, guys, that's how you make classic Napolitaine. I've just added sprinkles on top, but these contain the strawberry mixture in the middle, classic shortbread, and the pink icing. Hope you love the recipe, guys, and if you're going to try them at home, I'd love to see your creations.